Hey, Lighthouse. Well, just as a reminder to you, if you have a question that we that would turn into a good conversation, you can be part of our Friday questions and conversations videos. You can send a question to questions@lighthousebaptist.net. Questions coming up are about the utility of circumcision and whether or not Paul has one consistent message about circumcision. Another question is about why was Moses not allowed in the promised land? Wouldn't you have just let him in? Why didn't God do that? So good questions coming up. If you want to contribute to that, would love to hear from you. You can always find directions and Sunday videos and all this stuff on our website at lighthousebaptist.net. Okay, so there are only a few ways to learn a lesson. And I've said this many times before. You can learn from your mistakes, which is one of the most painful ways to learn things. You can just trust people who are trying to tell you the right and wrong thing to do. Or you can learn from other people's mistakes. And I don't know why we don't take advantage of that one more. To me, these are some of the wisest people in the world who don't have to be the primary source of the consequences, who can look at other people's mistakes and see how other people either failed or brought pain on themselves and say, I want to avoid that. And that's exactly what Daniel is going to accuse Belshazzar of doing wrong as we continue in Daniel chapter 5. Daniel, you know the story so far. Belshazzar with the debauch party with the gold and silver utensils from the house of God. The handwriting on the wall. Belshazzar freaks out, says, "Oh my gosh, we need somebody to interpret this on the wall." His queen, who apparently was not invited to the debauched party with all of the concubines and wives, is just filthy. But she says, "Hey, O king, live forever." That's how the queen addresses the king. "O king, live forever. Hey, back in Nebuchadnezzar's day, there was a guy named Daniel, and you should go find him because he could interpret stuff." So Belshazzar finds Daniel and tells him, "Hey, if you'll interpret this, I'll make you rich and powerful." And then in verse 17, we see Daniel's answer to Belshazzar. And it says this: "Then Daniel answered and said before the king, 'Let your gifts be for yourself and give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation.'" Daniel is probably an old man at this point. He's kind of had it with this "O king, live forever" stuff. He's been through this with Nebuchadnezzar. Apparently, he's been kind of put out to pasture somehow or filed away. However it is, he went from very prominent in Nebuchadnezzar's court to Belshazzar doesn't even know where he is or who he is. And so when he comes and Belshazzar has addressed him with like, "Oh, I'm going to make you rich and famous and powerful." And Daniel addresses him by just going, "I've had it. There's no 'O king, live forever' here. There's just Daniel saying, keep your gifts, give your rewards to somebody else. But you want to know the truth? I'll tell you the truth." And then he tells Belshazzar the story of Nebuchadnezzar and says, you should know this. You had the opportunity to learn to be humble before God. You had the opportunity. You've seen what a lack of humility, what pride gets you. You know the stories of Nebuchadnezzar, and yet you refused. Watch what he says in verse 22. "And you, his son," he's just told him the story of Nebuchadnezzar, "and you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all of this, but you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven, and the vessels of his house have been brought in before you, and you and your lords and your wives and your concubines have drunk wine from them, and you have praised gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or know, but the God in whose hand is your breath, and whose are all your ways you have not honored." I think let's just stop there for today and just think about what Daniel is accusing Belshazzar of. It's not just pride, it's that he should have known better. And you and I can tell story after story of Christians who have failed. We can look and we say, oh, this person, it was anger that cost him his marriage. This person, it was lust that cost him his pulpit. This person was, prominent on leadership teams in churches, but then, greed got in the way. Or with this person, it was jealousy or whatever. And we can look and we can say, oh, can you believe these people and the way they honored and worshiped other things instead of having a humble heart before God? And look what it cost them. It cost them their ministries, and it cost them their place in the Christian community and all of this stuff. There's never going to be a shortage. There is never going to be a shortage of big, famous Christians who've let us down. Fortunately, there's, Christians that we all know that haven't let us down too. Praise the Lord for them. But look, if you're looking for people to say, oh, they have, their idolatry and sin costs them a lot. Well, it's one thing to be able to see that and articulate it. It's another thing to heed that warning. And this is what Belshazzar is not able to do. Belshazzar is not able to look at the failure of Nebuchadnezzar and then the conversion of Nebuchadnezzar and say, you know what? I don't want to have to have the consequences that Nebuchadnezzar had. I just want to learn the lessons that Nebuchadnezzar learned. These are the wisest people in the world. So instead of being judgmental, when we see failure around us, let's be wise. Let's be lesson learners. Let's, instead of having fingers that point to everybody else, be people who say, how can I grow in wisdom with the failure of other people? How can I set my life up so I am honoring God and don't have to have the consequences that I've seen around me or that I've seen, in the church in my lifetime? There's only so many ways you can learn something. You're either going to make mistakes, and of course there'll be some of this for all of us, but you're either going to make mistakes and have great falls and then learn those lessons. Some people make mistakes, have great falls, and never learn either. But you're either going to have to feel this pain and have a bunch of negative consequences, or you're going to be able to recognize that other people have already made these failures. Other people have already made these mistakes. And you could be wise and avoid the consequences. Just humble your heart. Just think of other people first. Just put God at the top of your life instead of you. And then we don't have to be like Belshazzar. All right, Lighthouse, be loved.